Life has a way of bringing challenges when we least expect them. Maybe you lose your job right when bills are piling up. Perhaps someone you love gets sick. Or a friendship you treasured suddenly falls apart. These moments hurt deeply, and when you're in the middle of them, it feels like the pain will never end. But here's something remarkable that people have discovered throughout history. The very suffering that seems to crush us can actually become the force that lifts us higher than we've ever been before. Nichiren Daishonin wrote something powerful about this. He said, "Suffer what there is to suffer, enjoy what there is to enjoy. Regard both suffering and joy as facts of life, and continue chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, no matter what happens." These words might seem simple at first, but they contain a profound truth. He's not saying to pretend suffering doesn't hurt. He's not asking us to smile through tears and act like everything is fine. Instead, he's pointing to something deeper. When we face our pain with faith and determination, we discover strength we never knew existed. Think about how a seed grows. Before it can become a beautiful tree, it must first break open in the dark soil. The shell that protected it must crack apart. This breaking might look like destruction, but it's actually the beginning of something magnificent. The seed doesn't fight against this process. It doesn't say, "This is too hard, I give up." It uses the very act of breaking to push roots down and shoots up. Our suffering works in a similar way. When hardships crack open the comfortable shell of our lives, we have a choice. We can retreat and become bitter, or we can use that breaking as the start of our own transformation. The Lotus Sutra teaches us that every person has the potential for enlightenment right now, exactly as they are. You don't need to wait until circumstances are perfect. You don't need to become someone different first. The Buddha nature exists within you at this very moment, even in the midst of your suffering. In fact, the Lotus Sutra reveals something revolutionary. The challenges you face are not obstacles to your enlightenment. They are the very material from which your enlightenment is built. This is why Nichiren Daishonin called faith the sharp sword that cuts through earthly desires. When you're going through a difficult time, it's natural to ask, why me? What did I do to deserve this? These questions can spiral into despair if we're not careful. But Buddhist practice offers a different perspective. Instead of getting stuck in why, we can shift to what now. What can this experience teach me? How can I use this challenge to become wiser, more compassionate, more resilient? This shift in thinking doesn't make the pain disappear instantly, but it does give the suffering a purpose. And when suffering has purpose, it becomes bearable. Nichiren Daishonin faced incredible hardships himself. He was exiled twice, nearly executed, and constantly persecuted for his beliefs. Yet he wrote from exile, "Gold is purified through repeated fires, and believers are tested through difficulties." He wasn't speaking theoretically. He was sharing what he learned through his own suffering. Each time authorities tried to break his spirit, his faith grew stronger instead. Each persecution became evidence that he was on the right path, because he knew that anything truly valuable in life requires us to fight for it. The concept of changing poison into medicine is central to Nichiren Buddhism. Imagine taking something toxic and transforming it into healing. This isn't magic or wishful thinking. It's about the power of our attitude and determination. When we face suffering with the resolve to grow from it, we literally change its nature in our lives. A failure becomes a lesson. A betrayal becomes wisdom about human nature. An illness becomes deeper appreciation for health and life itself. The poison doesn't disappear, but it stops being poisonous. Instead, it becomes the medicine we needed all along. There's a story about a woman who came to the Buddha grief-stricken because her child had died. She begged him to bring the child back to life. The Buddha told her he would help, but first she needed to bring him a mustard seed from a household that had never experienced death. She went from door to door, and everyone had lost someone. By the time she returned, her understanding had transformed. She realized that suffering and loss are part of being human. This didn't erase her grief, but it gave her a context for it. She was no longer alone in her pain, and this connection to all of humanity became the beginning of her healing. When we chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in the face of difficulties, something powerful happens. We're not begging some external force to fix our problems. We're tapping into the strength that already exists within us. We're declaring that no matter how hard things get, we have the courage to keep going. We're connecting with the same life force that moves through everything in the universe. Nichiren Daishonin wrote, "The heart of the Buddha's lifetime of teachings is the Lotus Sutra, and the heart of the practice of the Lotus Sutra is found in the Never Disparaging chapter." This chapter tells of a bodhisattva who showed profound respect to everyone he met, even those who mistreated him, because he saw their Buddha nature. When we practice with this spirit, even people who hurt us become our teachers. Your determination during tough times is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. A person who has never faced real hardship might seem fortunate, but they haven't had the chance to develop true inner strength. When their first major challenge arrives, they may crumble because they haven't built up any resilience. But someone who has struggled and persevered has developed spiritual muscles that can handle whatever comes next. Each difficulty you overcome makes you more capable of handling the next one. This is why Nichiren Daishonin said, "A sword is useless in the hands of a coward. Faith without determination to use it won't create change." The wisdom that comes from suffering is different from knowledge you read in books. Book knowledge sits in your head. Wisdom from experience settles into your bones. It becomes part of who you are. When you've been through financial hardship and found your way through it, you understand money differently than someone who only studied economics. When you've nursed a broken heart back to health, you understand love with a depth that romance novels can't teach. This embodied wisdom makes you genuinely helpful to others who face similar struggles, because you're not speaking from theory. You're speaking from lived experience. There's a beautiful teaching in Buddhism about the lotus flower. Unlike other flowers that bloom away from the mud, the lotus rises from the mud itself. The deeper the mud, the more beautiful the lotus that emerges. Your suffering is the mud. Your wisdom and happiness are the lotus. You can't have one without the other. Trying to avoid all suffering means missing the opportunity to bloom. This doesn't mean we should seek out pain or stay in harmful situations. It means when suffering comes, and it will come because that's part of being alive, we can meet it with courage and faith instead of fear and resistance. Nichiren Daishonin wrote, "If you light a lantern for another, it will also brighten your own way." When you transform your suffering into wisdom, you naturally want to help others do the same. Your pain becomes purposeful when it allows you to understand and support someone else who's struggling. A person who has never been depressed might offer well-meaning but ultimately unhelpful advice to someone in despair. But someone who has climbed out of that dark pit knows exactly what to say and do because they've walked that path themselves. Your transformed suffering becomes a light for others. The practice of Buddhism is sometimes called a practice of hope. Not the kind of hope that's just wishful thinking, like hoping you'll win the lottery. This is hope rooted in the understanding that change is possible, that you have the power to transform your life, that suffering doesn't have to be permanent. When you chant with this kind of hope, even your darkest moments contain the seeds of breakthrough. Nichiren Daishonin promised, "Those who believe in the Lotus Sutra are as if in winter, but winter always turns to spring. No winter lasts forever. Spring always comes. But spring is sweeter because you remember the cold. Consider how challenges reveal your true character. When everything is going well, it's easy to be kind, patient, and generous. But difficulties show you who you really are underneath the pleasant surface. Do you blame others, or do you take responsibility? Do you give up, or do you keep trying? Do you become bitter, or do you grow compassionate? These revelations can be uncomfortable, but they're incredibly valuable. You can't fix character flaws you don't know exist. Suffering brings them into the light where you can see them, acknowledge them, and work on them. The Lotus Sutra teaches that the Buddha appears in the world for one great purpose, to help all beings awaken to their enlightened nature. Your suffering can serve the same purpose in your life. Each challenge is an opportunity to wake up, to see more clearly, to understand more deeply. When life is comfortable, it's easy to coast along half asleep. But when suffering shakes you awake, you have the chance to really look at your life, your choices, your priorities. Many people say that their greatest growth came during their hardest times, not because the suffering itself was good, but because it forced them to dig deeper than they ever had before. There's tremendous power in deciding that your suffering will not be wasted. You can choose to let it break you, or you can choose to let it break you open. Breaking means fragments that can't be put back together. Breaking open means expanding, to hold more wisdom, more compassion, more strength than before. Nichiren Daishonin wrote about this when he said, "The sufferings of hell are but temporary joys when they help you to appreciate the power of faith." He's not saying suffering is joyful in the moment. He's saying that when you use suffering as fuel for your practice, even the worst experiences contribute to your ultimate happiness. Faith and determination work together like two wings of a bird. Faith alone without determination might leave you passively waiting for things to improve. Determination alone without faith might lead to exhausted struggle without hope. But when you combine deep faith in your Buddha nature with fierce determination to keep going no matter what, you become unstoppable. This combination transforms you from a victim of circumstances into a creator of your own destiny. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How will I use this to become stronger?" The transformation from suffering to wisdom to happiness isn't always quick or obvious. Sometimes you only recognize the wisdom years later, looking back at a difficult period. But the transformation is real and profound. Every person who has achieved something meaningful has stories of failure, rejection, and struggle along the way. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't that some people avoid suffering. It's that some people refuse to let suffering stop them. They see it as part of the journey, not the end of the road.